Oh, welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also in the name of the show. Hello. I have some updates and some other stuff to get to. We have lots going on in Philadelphia. Eagles training camp open today. Hooray! Cristopher Sanchez spun up one hell of a beautiful complete game. Yay! ESPN is apparently trying to buy the NFL Network. ESPN is trying to buy NFL Red Zone. That might not be ideal. Another NFC East team is clowning themselves. Remember, we talked about Jerry Jones on Monday's show, calling out Micah Parsons for not being available and Dak Prescott for getting injured. Washington now made headlines. The Giants, meanwhile, not making a lot of headlines, but we might get to them because there was something really funny that happened over at training camp for the New York Giants today. You know what? Screw it. I don't even have it pulled up, but I'll pull it up real fast because I saw it before, and it made me laugh a little bit. The NFC East, right? We know about how, this is really the Eagles' division to lose, if we're being fair. Everybody likes to come back to, that's very rare for a team in the NFC East to repeat as champions. Feels like the gap between the Eagles and the rest of the division has only grown, which is kind of hilarious because, you would think that Washington would have been able to bring in even more premier free agents, especially considering that Jayden Daniels is the number 5 quarterback in the National Football League. You would have assumed that maybe Dallas, because it's Jerry's world and we're all just living in it, maybe they'd have been able to do something. The Giants, though, we knew the Giants would do nothing. Remember how the Giants took Jackson Dart in the draft and people are like, what the hell are they thinking? Why'd they go Jackson Dart? Seems like a weird choice. Training camp opened up today for the Giants as well, and I just want you to see, this was Jackson Dart's first throw in training camp for the Giants. All right, everybody just sit back. Allow the fear to consume you. This is the first pass he threw in full squad drills at training camp for the Giants. Let's just watch. And that's going the other way. Yep, sure is, and that is a pick 6. So on Jackson Dart's first pass of 11 on 11 at training camp for the Giants, he throws a pick 6. Now listen, we all know how I feel about tracking reps at training camp and what a nonsensical thing it is to do. And, part of me gets it. For Elliott Shore-Parks, to get why he does it, and it is good engagement and all that. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. But man, oh man, poor Giants, man. It's just, they had one of the roughest 12-month stretches, right? You go back to the Hard Knocks series where you saw them kind of lamenting what to do about Saquon Barkley and ultimately deciding let him test free agency. And then you saw he goes to the Eagles and Mara, the owner's like, oh, if he goes to Philadelphia, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep at night. And then Saquon Barkley goes and wins a Super Bowl in his first year as a Philadelphia Eagle, and you go, oh, it can't possibly get worse for the Giants than that, can it? And then you see stuff like this, and it's like, yeah, it actually can. It can get worse for the New York Giants. So there's that. And while we're on the topic of the rest of the NFC East, really quickly, I do want to get to an update, because if you remember, we talked about this probably about a month or so ago, when it was apparent that this could happen, and then it did actually come to fruition today. We're going to go over to the Commanders really quickly, and this is not about Trump apparently saying, they have to become the Redskins again, or they're not getting a new stadium. They have to be the Redskins. We're not doing that. That's not today. Look at this. Look what happened. So the Commanders have officially placed Terry McLaurin on the reserve/did not report list as he begins his holdout from training camp. And the rest of it doesn't really matter. But Terry McLaurin, probably the most important offensive weapon for Jayden Daniels, who enters his second season in the National Football League, coming off an astounding rookie season. Truly, no matter how you feel, and no matter how you felt about that top 10 list that we talked about last week, Jayden Daniels is a really good, promising quarterback. We have no hatred here on the Russ Joy Show for Jayden Daniels. We think he's a very good quarterback and wish him all the best. this is not a good way to start his sophomore season by making sure that, like, what he should do is try to make sure that his guy gets paid. It's kind of a big deal for Terry McLaurin to like be in camp and feel good about it, for Jane Daniels to have that guy throughout the entirety of camp, work on timing, work on that chemistry. It's good to have the whole team together. And right now, this is a distraction, just like how down in Dallas, Micah Parsons went out and met with the media yesterday. I mean, it was Micah Parsons, and I'm trying to think of who else it was. It was two defensive players. They met with the media to respond. It was Trayvon Diggs. They met with the media to talk about the fact that Parsons isn't signed, and we're actually going to go to that too. I don't know how we ended up doing like an NFC East around the league recap here, but like if you remember on Monday's show, we played the clip of Jerry Jones saying about Micah Parsons. Even if you have him under contract, doesn't mean that he's going to play because he can get hurt. And then also, I don't know, like doing a drive-by on Dak Prescott. We made him the highest paid player at the position at the time, and then he missed 2/3 of the season. Here's Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs yesterday outside of Cowboys practice responding to the front office.
Some teams, with guys like Max, he was like, man, they knew I was coming up and they just want to take care of him. And I just say, must be nice, you know what I mean?
Is it hard to be patient to try to get a deal?
Oh, no, patience is a virtue. I think it's key to patience. I think life is all about patience, knowing when it's your turn, when it's your opportunity, and you maximize it.
You always help him when he's doing the rehab. Are you helping him with the contract? Because he got yours a little early.
Yeah, of course. It's telling him stay patient. It's coming. He's the best player in the NFL. Like, why wouldn't you pay him?
It's a good teammate. Such a good teammate, Trayvon Diggs, saying he's the best player in the National Football League. Front office probably isn't thrilled to hear that, right? Because then showed the man the money. I don't know how Micah Parsons hasn't asked for a trade yet. That's the thing I still just don't fundamentally get. And I know a lot of Eagles fans kind of sit back and go, oh, it'd be great to see Micah Parsons, demand out. He played at Penn State. He'll come to play for the Eagles. Like, yeah, maybe. Who the hell knows? Anything can happen. Howie Roseman works a little bit of voodoo magic here and there, and then all of a sudden Micah Parsons shows up. Could it happen? Maybe. Unlikely, but maybe. If you're Micah Parsons, you are one of the best defensive players in the National Football League. You should be getting paid. It shouldn't take much for Dallas to say, yes, you are one of the best players in the National Football League. We're going to pay you. I don't know why there's this chasm between the player/agent and the team, unless he's trying to get to be the number one paid player in the NFL, not just defensive player, but player. Is he trying to get paid more than a Patrick Mahomes? If so, all right, that's pretty ridiculous. And now I get why maybe there's this gaffe. There's this chasm between the two sides, but wild. So all of this, friends, is we have Dallas in turmoil. We have Washington with their number one wideout not in camp right now. He's in the midst of a holdout. Jackson Dart threw an interception on his first pass of training camp in full squad scrimmage for the Giants. And that leads you to the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do want to start there, and I forgot to do this, but I'll do it right now. Bottom right side of the screen, comments will pull up. We have a lot of comments in already. None of those will show up right now. It's from this point on, all the comments will show up. Now, I'm going to throw something out here really quickly, and maybe we'll talk about it later on in the show. I've been flirting with the idea of doing some additional things for this channel. Now, at this point, we are doing a show 3 days a week. Video guy Amadeus clipping everything up and doing short form and all kinds of stuff. And I want to keep the thing going. I want to keep building on it. But I need to know what else we should be doing here. Now, the goal, I think I've told you guys, is at some point, probably August, we're going to start working on having guests every week, every other week. I have a whole series idea in mind. But YouTube keeps sending me these updates, and they keep sending me these things, and they go, you have a very engaged group of people that like to comment on your show. Have you considered memberships? And I said, no, it's stupid. But then I thought about it, and I said, there might be a way to do something that doesn't suck. And nobody wants to spend money on stuff. I certainly don't like to just throw money here and there and all around the square. Now, there is people who decide to throw out a super chat from time to time. Greatly appreciate it. Catholic No dropped a $10 super chat last show. Greatly appreciate it. But I'd like to give people a little bit more for their money. And so I've thought about the idea of doing some kind of a YouTube membership. This show won't go away. The 3 times a week won't go away. The short forms, none of that goes away. This is just additive. And so there's been this thought about all right, do we do post-game stuff? Do we do things around big series? Do we do a members-only stream for the end of a Phillies series that matters, or a Flyers game, or additional coverage around Flyers training camp, something like that? let me know. I'm also going to open up in the YouTube channel, there's a community tab. And to this point, I stupidly didn't know you could allow for people to comment, but you can. And so I'm going to open that up. And hopefully we're going to do a wonderful, like a wonderful community tab. So all the people who are in the comments that like to go back and forth, they can continue to do that. But those of you who watch after the fact or watch on Facebook or on X or listen in the podcast feed, you can kind of interact with all those people in the community tab of the channel. I'll have that set up by, I don't know, like Wednesday night. And so I'm going to open that up to people. I don't want to start a Discord necessarily. I don't want to do any of the stuff where you have to like go off of YouTube or you have to go like to some other app. But if there are things that you want to see, by all means. And I saw Ford through this idea, can be and should be a guest. There was somebody on the last show who was like, hey, what if you did a show where you interact with the people? And I thought about it and I was like, to open that up to everybody in the whole wide world might be kind of complicated, but I could do a thing where maybe on a Tuesday or a Thursday or something, we do a show that's behind the membership tier or whatever, and that's me and it's all of you who decide to subscribe, and I can give you the link to like not the YouTube, but to the back end of like where the show is recorded, and I could bring people on, and that could be a lot of fun. And maybe we could kind of set up, I forget how many people I could have on at once, but like that could be a lot of fun, and that would be its own like weird membership tier and all that wonderful stuff. And I think I have a way to potentially, even in the podcast feed, to remove the ads. So if you sign up for a YouTube membership, I can get rid of the ads. I can give you a different link if you want to listen in the podcast feed and all that. Just let me know what you think. And I'll probably put something in the community tab. You can let me know what you're looking for, what you think would be worth it. I don't know. So we shall see. Anyway, these are just ideas. These are things that I'm throwing out there. That's all. But we shall see. Okay. Now, I have a lot to get into because we've already talked about the NFC East, and that's great. There are wild things happening around the Eagles for the start of training camp. I think that's where I want to start today's show. But there are a couple of other things to get to. We'll talk about the ESPN and NFL Network and Red Zone. Like, we'll talk about all that in a bit. But I am going to start with something that's not Eagles related. I want to start really quickly with a little bit of appreciation for Cristopher Sanchez. Is that okay? I know it's weird to go football, then the membership thing. Now we're going to do baseball and we're going to get back to football. But I promise it'll be worth it. And the whole reason that I want to do this is because I think that in the midst of a season where we have seen such incredible pitching, starting pitching, to be clear, with the Philadelphia Phillies, there are moments that get kind of lost, right? Like, we all can acknowledge and appreciate the fact that Zach Wheeler is a bona fide stud. We can acknowledge the fact that Cristopher Sanchez is a bona fide stud. When healthy, Ranger Suarez is a bona fide stud. And then it kind of like stops. Like, then there are some other like question marks and all that. But like, let's focus on those three. And I specifically want to focus back on the nonsensicality, which I think is a word, and if not, it will be soon. The nonsensicality of what happened going into the All-Star game. That Zach Wheeler was an All-Star, great. Kyle Schwarber was an All-Star, great. But Cristopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez somehow were not All-Stars. And then remember, we broke it down. We had all the language and everything that, like, leading up to the All-Star game, Sanchez and Suarez were both approached about potentially pitching in the All-Star game. But in order for them to be All-Stars, they had to pitch in the All-Star game. And they both said, nah, that's fine. Nah, well, we didn't make it. Nah, it's fine. Would rather just, contribute to my team and not worry about getting thrown off by doing the All-Star game. And so neither of them were All-Stars. But then the Phillies said, well, you know what, Cristopher Sanchez, you have a clause in your contract, a bonus for being an All-Star, and they paid it to him, and it's like $50,000, which is, which is great. And like, Sanchez is pretty damn undercompensated, but good on him. Sanchez this season has been absolutely astonishing. And when you go back and you watch what happened yesterday, it was batshit crazy. Like, you're watching a guy who was in total command the entirety of the game, and he gets himself into that ninth inning with an opportunity to close it out, and he was a bona fide stud in getting it done. And so I just want to dive into the numbers here just for a minute, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. But like, is there better value in baseball right now than Cristopher Sanchez? Like, I think that's one of the places that we have to start. Remember, he's in the midst of a 4-year contract that'll pay him a total of, I think it's $22 million, $22.5 million. This year, he is getting paid $2 million, $2,050,000. I think that was the bonus. $2 million. Next year, 2026, $3.5 million. Then $6.5 million, $9.5 million. 2029, there's a club option for $14 million. 2030, there's a club option for $15 million. Now, for a guy that came in to Philadelphia, came up to this team with little to no fanfare, he has certainly exceeded expectations. I would even assume that for as good of a player as he thought he would be, for as good of a pitcher or great of a pitcher as he might have hoped in his best case scenario he would be, he's exceeded those expectations. He has to have, right? He looks every bit like a number one starter and is on the cusp, I would say, of being an ace on a lot of teams in Major League Baseball, not just the National League. And so you look at the value. At $2 million, there is not a single player, or at least a pitcher. Let's go pitcher. There's not a single pitcher in the National League, maybe not even a single pitcher in all of Major League Baseball, that is giving you better value right now for $2 million than Cristopher Sanchez this year. And by the way that not the cap, but the way that payrolls work in baseball year over year over year, that $14 million club option in 2029, you would assume is pretty much going to be a foregone conclusion unless the guy like totally falls back down to earth. And every year it's going to look like more and more of a steal. I don't actually know if you're the Phillies, do you have to try to figure out a way to like compensate this guy in another way? Maybe the Phillies try to hook the man up with a sponsorship that's going to pay him some actual money. I'm not saying they should feel guilty or dirty about the fact that he's making such a small amount of money relative to like Aaron Nola, but like it's insane. Let's go over some numbers. Let's just take a little bit of a dive into young Cristopher Sanchez this year. All right, he's 28. So it's not like he's got 15 years of Major League Baseball ahead of him, right? But here's where he's at on the season. A 2.40 ERA, which is down 0.92 from a season ago. So nearly down an entire earned run from last year. He's already made 20 starts. He made 31 in all of 2024. He's at 9-2. Last year he was 11-9. You can get into the argument about whether or not wins are indicative of a pitcher's excellence or if it's more of a team stat. I'm fine with leaning into like there's certainly a team component to it. But 9-2 on the season. His whip is 1.09, which is the lowest it's been since 2023, where he pitched in 19 games and had a 1.05 whip. So in really strong position there. 134 strikeouts thus far this season. Last year in 31 starts, he only had 153. So he's only 19 off the pace of a season ago in 11 fewer games, in 11 fewer starts. His walks are going to be higher than last year. He's at 32 walks. He had 44 all of last season. Probably will end up eclipsing that. Maybe he gets to like 48, maybe 50. But those strikeouts, I would assume, are going to get somewhere close to the range of, if he starts another 10 or 11 games, I mean, he should eclipse 200 if he keeps up on at this pace, right? Or close to it. Does he get to like 175? Can he get to 180? Maybe 200 is a little bit crazy. Can he get to 175? I would say that he probably will eclipse last year's strikeouts. And so you look at this on the whole and you say, this pitcher is even better than he was a year ago. And if you remember, there was a stretch last year where we had the conversation about, is Cristopher Sanchez like kind of like the heir apparent to Zach Wheeler? We had the conversation at different points last year. Is he the true number two on this team? Remember, like a season ago, some people who were still Nola truthers were like, oh, no. Aaron Nola is still the number two pitcher on this team. Now, Ranger Suarez, incredible. Is Ranger Suarez the number two on the team right now? I don't know. I think you'd probably say Sanchez is right there. Maybe one of those two. Sanchez has been able to stay healthier, so I'd say I'd probably give the nod to Sanchez. He's also under contract. Ranger Suarez isn't because, again, apparently the Phillies decided, not a priority to, have Ranger Suarez under contract beyond this year. That's fine. We talked about that on Monday. I got my anchor out on Monday. But Cristopher Sanchez is everything you would expect an ace to be, let alone a number two or a number three, or even coming into the season, the Phillies might have said, it should go Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Sanchez, or something like that. If he's supposed to be a number 3 or 4 and you're getting this kind of production, again, there is no better value in Major League Baseball than Cristopher Sanchez. He's been absolutely sensational. Sensational. Peter Tomillo says Sanchez might just be a star. Yeah, I mean, he very much seems like a bona fide star. He does. 100%. Let's see. Amadeo says he'll finish top 3 in Cy Young. We'll see. We'll see where it ends up landing, right? Like if he keeps this up, if his ERA is sub 2.5, I would think that he's got to be in consideration. Will he be top 3? I don't know. Let's see. Saw some other stuff over here. That was about the memberships of our. We'll hold off on that. So, Cristopher Sanchez, complete game last night, double-digit strikeouts, and then you go back, and this is the other thing that I wanted to get to. Over his last few starts, the strikeouts have kind of hovered in that like 6 to 8 range, right? Had 8 strikeouts a couple games ago, 6 in the last effort, and then he had 12 yesterday. The strikeouts were up. He was on top of his game. The thing that you have to love about Cristopher Sanchez is he makes you suffer through the bullpen less. So in his last 4 starts, he has gone at least 7 innings. 7 and a third, and then a complete game last night. If you take out a game against Houston on June 26th, that would mean that he, over his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 8 starts, he's gone at least 7 innings. In those games, 2 of them, he's gone 8 or more innings. He's been sensational this year. And remember, early in the season, we were feeling pretty good about it because he was getting through like 6 innings. And you'd say, oh, okay. And then Dave Dombrowski's probably like, oh, well, we're going to get him to Jordan Romano. And when Jordan Romano comes into the game, he's going to close it out. It's going to be great. Now, we're going to have Jose Alvarado and Jordan Romano this year. We know the 8th and the 9th innings are pretty set. And plus Kirkering, maybe in the 7th. Oh, yeah, we're good. 6 innings. No. So Cristopher Sanchez has now kind of like put the team on his back even more when he's pitching. He's going further into games. Now, the only thing that I get a little bit worried about is you don't want to burn out his arm. That's the only thing I worry about. He's been able to stay healthy. You got to watch. I have no problem yesterday. It's only 106 total pitches. That is the most of the month. I think it's the most pitches he's thrown in any game this season. That's fine. They usually keep him in the high 80s, low 90s. So this is more than he's used to throwing in a game, but he was so locked in yesterday, you just kind of have to let it go. And all of this is to kind of lead up to, you have a closeout game against the Red Sox on Wednesday. Then you go up to New York and you're taking on the Yankees. And I'm not saying that's like a gut check kind of game. I'm not saying it's a gut check series by any stretch. But it is like one of those series where you want to see how you stack up against one of the better teams in Major League Baseball. Now, these Yankees are not leading the AL East. That distinction goes to Toronto. But like the Yankees are right there at second. They've been able to do damage, the Phillies have, to the Red Sox standing in the AL East. Now you're going to go up to Yankee Stadium. Can you continue the momentum? We'll find out. We'll find out soon. Ford here says you need to hit and score. I still keep coming back to, they have to fix the lineup at the deadline. They have to address a hole in the lineup. Please, for the love of all things good in this world, get one outfielder who can actually hit and is an everyday starter. Get that guy. Add him to this lineup and go into the playoffs feeling good, because Cy Young pitching is what you have gotten this year. Cy Young caliber pitching is what you've gotten from Wheeler and Suarez and Sanchez, at the very least. And a couple of starts early in the season from Saiwan Walker. But for the most part, it's been Nola, it's been Suarez, it's been Sanchez. You have 3 of your 5 starters that look like they could go out and dominate a game each and every time out. And if they're healthy going into the playoffs, you might have a hard time finding a better 1, 2, 3 in all of baseball than those 3. But the hitting has to happen. The hitting has to remain consistent. That has been the thing that has ultimately cost the Phillies. Cold streaks against the Astros and against the Diamondbacks, and certainly against the Mets in the playoffs last year. That's what has doomed this Phillies team. If you can get this lineup locked in, make it a little bit slump-proof, you could be a World Series contender. You actually could be. We talked about this on Monday. I would like to imagine that John Middleton has watched the show since Monday, and he heard me say, I don't like hearing about 5-10 years from now. But I know John Middleton seems like a good dude. He wants to win. I think some of those weekend comments about 5 to 10 years from now, I think he's probably heard some of the backlash, the outcry. I do know for a fact that something I once put on Twitter did get back to John Middleton. We'll see if Monday's show does. And listen, if the Phillies ultimately go out and get a bullpen arm or an outfielder, you're welcome. That was all me. Clearly, it had to be me. Okay. Chris Freed here with a little bit of nonsense. Says Nola will be the savior come September. Can you imagine? Okay, let me play out this hypothetical really quickly. Amadeo, get ready to clip this. For all the talk about how the Phillies need a bullpen arm, true. They need an outfielder that can hit, true. There is nothing that would be better for this team going into the playoffs than a healthy Aaron Nola returning to the rotation and being a bona fide number 1A pitcher. Now, I don't know if it can happen anymore, but if Nola comes back after missing a large chunk of the season, and he's got certainly fewer innings on that arm than he has going into playoffs past, if he can come in and just join this rotation of Wheeler, Suarez, and Sanchez, or potentially, if you only really need 3 starters in the playoffs, you can push Suarez into the bullpen as a lefty out of pen. Not a bad thing. You have a really good Nola to go with an excellent Wheeler and an excellent Sanchez. All of a sudden, the calculus changes a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that getting that kind of addition is going to guarantee you a spot in the World Series. It won't. But it would certainly take a lot of pressure off. And it would certainly make you feel a lot better about that investment that you've made in Aaron Nola to this point. But we'll see. We'll see. It could happen. It's like the little kid said in Angels in the Outfield. It could happen. It could. I like this, by the way, from Peter Tom Willis. I think we might look back at the catcher interference. That might be the pivot point and catalyst to a November season. That was a wild way to walk off a game. Catcher's interference. And then yesterday we saw the play happen where it looks like Harper's stealing home, and they called I think they called a balk or they called catcher interference. But like, what a weird series. What a weird series thus far. We'll see what happens on Wednesday night. Maybe they just won't play with the catcher. Who knows? We'll find out. Jim Cochran over on YouTube chimes in. I don't want to be Negadelphia, but there is a 0.00001% chance Nola comes back and dominates. So you're saying there's a chance. We'll find out. We'll find out sooner or later. Now, that is the Phillies. That's all I wanted to get to with the Phillies. I want to go over to the Eagles. I do. I want to get to the Eagles, and I want to get to this NFL deal. Where should we go for? Should we knock out the NFL deal real quick? All right, fine. We'll go there, and then we'll go to training camp. The worst possible thing in the whole world is about to happen, if reports are to be believed. Andrew Marchand over at The Athletic, New York Times, says that ESPN is about to wrap up a $2 billion deal for the NFL Network and NFL Red Zone. And on the surface, you might say, oh, the NFL Network, who gives a shit? And you might be right, except for Good Morning Football. I do like Good Morning Football. It's the red zone piece of this. It's the red zone piece of the equation that already makes me want to throw up in my mouth. And there's a big reason why. And we're gonna throw over here to the Marchand report from over at The Athletic. And we're going to get rid of the comments here for a second. ESPN and NFL are close to a deal that would make programming available in ESPN's direct-to-consumer product this fall. The next era ESPN app could include Red Zone Channel, NFL Network, and more for $29.99 a month. You greedy corporate bastards. Now, I don't like the idea of ESPN owning the NFL Network or NFL Red Zone. To me, because they own the rights package they do, this kind of feels like kind of a conflict of interest. It kind of feels like a little bit of a monopolization of things. It certainly removes any possibility that you're going to have objective talk about things away from the field around the NFL. Like, it's one thing where ESPN might have kind of leaned away back in the day from talking about CTE and concussions because of their agreement with the league. Remember, ESPN had that show, which now escapes me, the scripted show, that was supposed to kind of be like the behind the scenes of what football was like. And then the rumor was it didn't get picked up for a second season because some of the depictions of players and what players do was frowned upon by the NFL. And so that was, it's not great. And so if ESPN is going to end up buying the NFL Network, if they're going to end up buying Red Zone, it really does feel like this is going to force the hand of a lot of consumers. And what's the worst thing you could do if you're a sports fan? It's to lean into this and to then provide capital for it, to then put your cash in the hands of ESPN. Now, if the idea here is you're a total cord cutter, a legitimate 100% cord cutter, but you want to still have access to the NFL, and the most enticing thing about the NFL, which I'd argue is Red Zone, $30 a month to have ESPN, all of the ESPN programming, all of the 30 for 30s, and having Red Zone, I would say for $30 a month, if you're a true cord cutter, is not bad value. If you could not give less of a shit about watching TV live, about having all of the over-the-air networks, about having programming from Fox and CBS and NBC and ABC and all that, you could give less of a shit about Bravo or about FX or about History Channel or, in the case of being a Philadelphian, NBC Sports Philly, and you just want to spend $29.99 a month to have ESPN, their whole library, all of that, all the live games that they air on like ESPN 8 The Ocho, all of that, plus Red Zone, yeah, $30 a month isn't bad value. The question is, what happens for those of us who are not going to be direct consumers of the Next Era ESPN app? What happens to those people? Because if the idea here is, oh, I pay for cable, or I'm a cord cutter, but I have YouTube TV. As it stands right now, I have YouTube TV and I have Red Zone. Am I still going to be able to get Red Zone? Is the price of Red Zone going to change? I have ESPN through YouTube TV. Is this now going to lead to YouTube TV having to go back into negotiations with Disney, and they're going to have to up the overall fee to carry both ESPN and ESPN2 and Red Zone, even though Red Zone is an additional package? Are they going to try to figure out a way to weasel Red Zone into the standard package with YouTube TV and Hulu and everybody else? I don't know. I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of concerns about this. And really, a lot of it doesn't matter. The simple version of this is, and why I said I was going to throw up in my mouth earlier is, there was a stretch last season, and you might even remember where you were when it happened, but you went from commercial-free football to commercials. Commercials started to pop up on Red Zone, and people lost their minds in a way that I don't think Red Zone was ready, right? And the next week, they apologized for it, but the commercials were still there. It was kind of like an acknowledgement. Yeah, you've gotten commercial-free to this point, but it's over. You know, don't cry because it's over. You know, smile because it happened in the first place. If I have to be honest here, do I think that Disney and ESPN are going to somehow over-commercialize Red Zone? Yeah, they are. And if it's going to be a $2 billion acquisition for NFL Network and Red Zone, or even if they're going to call it a partnership, right, where they're saying it's a programming partnership between NFL Red Zone and NFL Network with ESPN, $2 billion, yeah, you got to recoup some of that money. They're going to have commercials on everything. When you go to the $3, the $4, is there going to be a Slim Jim logo? Is there going to be a logo for like Viagra? Am I going to have to talk to my kids about, Dad, what is Viagra? What's that? I'd rather not have to talk to my kids about erectile dysfunction pills. It's one thing when the commercial comes on and you see the two old people sitting in the bathtubs, the separate bathtubs. That's Cialis. They're sitting in the separate bathtubs and they're holding hands. And the kids are like, why are those old people? Hold on, sorry, kid voice. Why are those old people sitting in bathtubs on a mountain edge holding hands? Well, honey, you see, those two old people realize they don't have a lot of time left. So they put the bathtubs, cast iron bathtubs, which are heavy, they put them on the edge of a cliff. And their hope is that because of erosion and climate change, eventually those bathtubs are going to fall off the edge and they're just going to have a quick and relatively painless death. Oh, those aren't the things you're supposed to tell your kids. I don't want to have to talk to my kids about erectile dysfunction meds. But you know damn well that's going to happen. Not me talking to them about it. You know that Red Zone is going to be papered. It's going to look like a UFC canvas. It's going to look like an F1 driver's, jumpsuit. It's going to look horrible. The days of the purity of NFL Red Zone are long gone and dead. That's what this merger, this acquisition is going to mean. Am I going to have to do, are we going to go from a 3-game box to a quad box, and now one of them is going to be a commercial? Are we going to do picture-in-picture, where now all of a sudden we have to listen to a commercial as it takes up 50% of the screen, and then you have game 1, game 2, game 3? Because I'm not paying for that. I love Red Zone. I am not paying for Red Zone to have a myriad of commercials and stupid sponsorships throughout. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't like it. And I'm pretty confident that a lot of people who do love Red Zone, who got very turned off by the commercialization of it last year, they will consider highly getting rid of their subscription to Red Zone if this comes to fruition and if it gets over commercialized. Now, if you are a creature of habit and you spend every Sunday enjoying watching 15, 20, 30, not 30, 5, 10 games and kind of getting to jump back and forth, and when the early window and the late window, that crossover starts to happen, and you're used to that, and you love that, and then you love the touchdown compilation at the end of all of the day games. If you're a creature of habit and you've had it all these years, you're probably going to keep it. You're going to bitch about it. You're going to complain about it. You're going to deal with the commercials, and you're going to, kind of hold your nose and just get through it. But man, it scares me to see ESPN's going to acquire it. I don't like it at all. And I don't know how anybody could enjoy it. But we'll find out. I'm sure that we're going to find out at some point here how ESPN's going to make Red Zone better. They're going to make Red Zone great again. We don't need to make it great again. It was already great. They started to screw it up last year, and I don't trust Mickey Mouse. Oh boy. Let's do picture in picture. Hey, folks. You ever look down below the border and say, that used to work, and now it doesn't? Welcome to NFL Red Zone, sponsored by Cialis. Here are two old people on a cliff in bathtubs. Hope they don't fall. Oh, no. Okay, I'm done. Okay. I am sad. Let's get happy again. Let's get really happy. Let's talk about the Eagles because training camp opened today, and I'm not going to give you a whole play-by-play breakdown of training camp. I'm not checking to see if Elliott Short Parts tracked all the stats today. That's not what matters. What matters are clippable moments. What matters are big-time quotes from big-time players. And you've probably noticed this. You probably saw this. Since the Eagles got their new Super Bowl rings, the ones that have the cool little button that you push and the wings come out. Since that happened, you may have noticed that Jalen Hurts hasn't been wearing his Super Bowl ring. A lot of people have gotten worried.
Oh no. What if Jalen Hurts isn't a team player now? Is Jalen Hurts not wearing his Super Bowl ring because he's trying to send a message to the team? Is Jalen Hurts upset about some of the players the Eagles let go? Does Jalen Hurts actually hate A.J. Brown? Does Jalen Hurts want to be traded to the Cowboys? What now? What does it mean?
No. Jalen Hurts finally broke his silence and told you exactly why he's not wearing his Super Bowl ring. And if you haven't seen the quote already, as soon as I show it to you, you're going to go, yeah, that's Jalen. Quote, I've moved on to the new year. It's as simple as that. So people have been worked up about Jalen Hurts not wearing the Super Bowl ring. And he just says, I've moved on to the new year. It's as simple as that. This dude is a bona fide killer. This guy is cold-blooded. I love it. I respect it. One of the wildest parts of watching this offseason, I'm going to go twofold here. And I saw, and I don't remember where or who brought it up, but I've noticed that Nick Sirianni hasn't been ridiculously over the top. He didn't go get a book deal. There hasn't been anything that's made you say, oh, Sirianni's being a distraction from the Eagles and the afterglow of winning their second Super Bowl in franchise history after going to their second Super Bowl in 3 years where Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both of those Super Bowls. Sirianni hasn't done anything to take advantage of his raised profile from winning a Super Bowl. I would make the case that Jalen Hurts is the same way. Hurts could have been going around. Now, we had the Love Hurts, right, Jordan Brand thing, right after the Super Bowl, which was totally cool, totally fine. But you haven't seen Hurts doing anything that would kind of give you the indication that, this guy all of a sudden, is smelling himself. That this guy is, a changed man in a negative way. In fact, pretty much everything that we have seen about Jalen Hurts this offseason is, dude is, ready to go back to work. We heard A.J. Brown talk about how, not that it wasn't fulfilling to win a Super Bowl, but, when it ultimately happened, he was like, all right, this is cool. And then you're kind of, ready to go back after it. And Devontae Smith was the same way. These guys are all cut from the same cloth. And it is so interesting because, listen, I know how I am, right? Whenever there's, a success, you should try to savor it, even for a moment, right? I think that there's actually something a little bit off if you like reach the pinnacle of something or you accomplish something awesome, you take no time to appreciate it and just go, yeah, we're on to the next one. No, take at least 5 minutes and be like, hey, worked hard to accomplish this thing, accomplished it. Awesome. Doesn't mean you take 2 weeks or 3 weeks to be like, look how great I am. You should certainly take some time to be like, this is pretty freaking awesome. Remember, Jalen Hurts, there's the image of him with the Lombardi and a cigar in his mouth, sitting in the hallway, just kind of soaking it in. That's great. If the next day he was ready to go back to work, all right, good on him, I guess. I always just like, the thing that always kind of worries me, right, is like players after the game being like, whoa, this is the first one. We're going to come back and do it again next year. The work starts now. Cool. Act like a human for a second and enjoy it. And Hurts seems to have. But this guy has the idea. I think he is so locked in now on, he probably wouldn't say he's locked in on his legacy, that he's not thinking about his legacy. But I think there's like something that ticks within inside this guy that says, they still doubt me. They still doubt my ability. These bullshit rankings done by executives, coaches, and scouts have me number 9. Have me behind Jaden Daniels, who's played 1 year, behind Justin Herbert, who has accomplished nothing in this league, behind the walking animated corpse of Matthew Stafford, all due respect, behind former number 1 pick Jared Goff, who has accomplished some stuff, but like is not better than Jalen Hurts. Joe Burrow, who keeps digging holes in the beginning of seasons, and then, oh, look how great he was. He threw it. We always come from behind wins. Yeah. When you dig a hole, you're going to throw the ball a lot. You're going to put up some pretty gaudy stats. Hurts just kind of looks like he's locked in on getting it done again and again and again. And when you saw him with like Michael Jordan, the pictures are going around like a week or two ago, just has a kind of aura to him. When you saw him take that picture with all the Jordan athletes, there's just kind of like an aura to the guy. He holds himself in a different way. And like, I think ultimately this guy's focus is on being the greatest quarterback, the greatest player of his era. I think that's where he's locked in on. And whatever happens, happens, but he's focused on the task at hand. And like, when that's the guy who's leading your team, when that's the guy who's the face of your franchise, it's pretty damn good. It's a pretty damn good thing. Now, Jalen Hurts has that kind of stoicism to it. There's a young guy who had a lot of fun at the Super Bowl parade, and a young guy who I think a lot of people certainly got to learn a little bit more about because of that Super Bowl parade, and a guy who played through a tricep tear in the Super Bowl. That was Nolan Smith. Now, I do want to touch on something Nolan Smith had to say, because to me, this is like setting such a wonderfully high bar for himself, but like, I kind of believe he has the ability to do it. We're going to throw out, because he was over on WIP's midday show today. And I want you to hear about Nolan Smith's goal for himself going into this season. Now remember, he suffered a tricep tear in the Super Bowl and kept playing like a freaking psycho, and good on him. Let's go over to Nolan Smith now, and I want you to see and hear what kind of a goal he has set for himself this season.
You know what I'm asking?
Yeah.
What's the number?
I can't tell it out loud.
Yeah, all right, then well, you can tell me in the.
So you have Hugh Douglas, who put up some fantastic numbers as a defensive lineman for your Philadelphia Eagles. And he doesn't say how many sacks. He says, what's the number? Okay.
Wait, because I have a number in my head.
What's your number?
I'm thinking 10 to 12.
All right, so let's look at Nolan Smith's reaction. This person behind him is just kind of like, ooh, I don't know. 10 to 12. Are you sure, Hugh?
That's a good number,
Yeah.
but that's on the low side.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
So Nolan Smith says 10 to 12 sacks? That's on the low side. Okay, young fella. Okay, let's keep going.
I respect.
I ain't saying nothing else.
No, you don't have to. You know, and you know what? Now I have to let everybody in because everybody probably don't understand the conversation.
Don't let them in.
Okay,
don't let them in. Just keep it like that. Keep it like that.
All right, I don't know what that was. Maybe they've had a conversation off the air.
Maybe I could speak without letting everyone in. What was your high? Was it 15?
15.
Well, that's the goal then. You got to beat Hugh Douglas. I mean,
That's a pretty respectable goal. To beat 15. 15's a lot.
Yeah, see,
you got to beat Hugh.
Pop.
Yeah.
They call me pop. Yeah,
you got to beat the old man. I mean, you got to beat Hugh.
Oh no, man! I don't never call them old men, man. They respect the game, and it's always gonna respect you.
See that? That's a great line from a young player too. Always respect the game, and the game will respect you.
Appreciate you.
What a guy.
You. See, now that don't work like that around these parts. They call me old every chance.
Come on, man.
So that to me, guys, is like a positive sign. So here you have, on one hand, you have Hurts, right? Hurts, stoic, doesn't let the highs get too high, the lows get too low. He's leading the team. You got a young guy like Nolan Smith, who's coming off of like what has been a debilitating injury, in fairness. Like a tricep tear is a legitimately awful, painful injury, not the easiest to rehab from. And he's not even talking about like, oh, well, I got to kind of ramp it up a little bit. I got to get myself, kind of back in the swing of the. No. It's like, 10 to 12, that's on the low side. Okay. Nolan Smith, we're all cheering for you. 100%. You know who else we're cheering for? And another guy that's kind of had to undergo some rehab, had to undergo surgery all the way back in March for his shoulder. That, of course, is first-round pick Jahad Campbell. And a little bit of positive, encouraging news as well. We actually saw young Jahad Campbell out at the first day of training camp today. And there he is. So if you were worried about, is Campbell going to be ready for the start of camp? I don't see a non-contact jersey there. So he's coming off of shoulder surgery back in March. He appears ready to go. That's another wildly successful, wildly high upside young defensive player to add to the mix. Very exciting. And the last thing that I want to get to, is another one of the Eagles vets. And I think this is really, really important because there are very few guys who have been able to have the opportunity to repeat that have played on the Philadelphia Eagles. And certainly going into this year, it's down to what? They're 3-2, right? You got Lovato Elliott and Lane Johnson. When you hear Lane Johnson, he was on WIP's morning show. And he's been a Super Bowl winner twice. He had an opportunity to repeat after Super Bowl 52. We know how that went. They had the opportunity to win a Super Bowl 3 years ago. We know how that went. They won the Super Bowl last year. Fantastic. Last season, earlier this year. Fantastic. It's a hard thing to do. Winning a Super Bowl is hard. Repeating is even harder. We're going to go out to Lane Johnson here really quick because I think that this is another one of those things that it's different when it's a guy who used to play for the team who comes in and tells you how hard it is to win a Super Bowl, how hard it is to try to repeat. It's another thing when you share the locker room with that guy. Here's Lane Johnson talking to the WIP about the challenge of trying to win back-to-back Super Bowls.
Super Bowl teams, you lose so many guys, free agency. So, some of that nucleus is broken up a little bit. But, yeah, what I do remember about that year is we started off not very good in 18, finished pretty good. Yeah. Had a chance to go to the NFC Championship game. And then 2020 or 2022 or 3 started off hot and then took a dumpster dive in the end. But
that was brutal. And we all remember that. We remember the way that the team collapsed, and we were talking about, does Nick Sirianni need to lose his job? And there were people starting to doubt Jalen Hurts and his leadership. And we all remember how that went. It was horrible.
Through both of those, I think what I remember most is just being distracted. I think, trying to achieve, hit a home run every game, just trying to be a hero every game instead of just playing the game.
So it seems like the Eagles have their heads on their shoulders the right way. If you remember going into the Super Bowl last season, one of the things that I kept saying was, it's one thing when you've never been there before and you don't know what to expect, because it's not just playing in the most important game of the year. It's not about just playing in the biggest game of the year, the biggest game that you might ever play in your entire career, period. When you don't know everything that the Super Bowl entails, the spectacle, the media availability, all the interviews that you're going to be doing the week leading up to it, all of the parties that you're going to be invited to, all of the things going on that are out of your normal routine. And you have that for like 2 weeks. Like you typically get that first week off, but the second week leading into the Super Bowl, you have all these media availabilities, all this kind of stuff that you're not used to having. There's a lot of pressure. And then you get kind of hit with that debilitating pressure of, wow, millions and millions and millions and millions of people are going to be watching me in this game. When you haven't had that experience, there's no way to prepare you for it. The only preparation, the only thing that can prepare you for it is experience. And so going into last season's Super Bowl 59, I said, well, a lot of the guys that were on that team, or a lot of the most important guys on that team, played in Super Bowl 57. They were there to take on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They now know what it's like. It was different than like when you had Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham saying going into Super Bowl 57, hey, here's what we remember from Super Bowl 52. It's one thing to have somebody in your locker room who tells you what it's like. It's another thing to experience it. Now, a lot of the guys that matter on this team have been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 seasons, and they're going to try to go back and repeat. Like, they're going to try to do something that only one other team in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles has had the opportunity to do, enter a season as a Super Bowl champion and attempt to repeat. It clearly did not happen for the Eagles following Super Bowl 52. We will see what happens this year, but the experience that those guys have together and the experience of what it's like to get to the top of the mountain, they don't exactly know what it's like to have the target fully on their back. They did know that, like, listen, Super Bowl 57, there was a big, I would say that, like, the season with Super Bowl 57, there was a lot of domination that the Eagles did. But going into that year, I don't think there was as big of a target on their back. After Super Bowl 57, and after watching Hurts outplay Mahomes, you knew that following season, everybody was going to gun for the Eagles. They were a representative of the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's going to be one of the games that everybody circles on their calendar. Even the worst teams in the league that are going to take them on, they're circling that. That's the team that was one win away from, hoisting the Lombardi trophy. You certainly are going to have that times like 10 now that you are the defending champions. Every team and every player that lines up across from a Philadelphia Eagle this year is going to look to prove that their team or they themselves as an individual player is better than their counterpart from the reigning defending Super Bowl champion. It seems like they all have their heads screwed on the right way, which is great. And speaking of having their heads screwed on the right way, and speaking of like having to do the right things, there's maybe one thing that is even better. And there were pictures going around of this guy, like, it was backlit, right? It was like some on-screen stuff. I want you to take a gander at Jordan Davis. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to this account over on X, Eagles Fans 9, because they have the side-by-side. And I think the side-by-side is where it's really going to kind of hammer home. So Jordan Davis is a guy, if you remember last year, Brian Baldinger called out Jordan Davis. Essentially said, like, dude's looking chunky. Not sure he's going to be able to, like, compete at a high level because his weight is out of control. Let's look at last year's Jordan Davis versus this year's Jordan Davis and try to tell me that these guys aren't starkly different looking players. This is Jordan Davis now, right here. This is Jordan Davis reporting to training camp. This is Jordan Davis as a rookie. Now, obviously, you have different scenarios. You're right. He's got like the baggy kind of jacket here versus here. He's not, but like, you see right here, if you're a father of 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 kids, you might notice from time to time this area right in here, this abdomen area, this kind of balloons a little bit as you have kids. And in the case of Jordan Davis, it's not about having kids. It's just, you're a big defensive lineman and everybody kind of expects for you to be a big boy. He looks svelte. If the idea is that Jordan Davis needed to lock in, maybe Vic Fangio got in Jordan Davis's head. You're really good as currently constructed. You could be great. And when you have a guy like Jalen Carter playing next to you, who's getting like comparisons to Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh in his prime, like when you have that guy next to you, if you're Jordan Davis, you have everything at your disposal. You have every possible good thing going for you. Coming off a season as a Super Bowl champion, if you come in better shape and you can dominate and maybe become more of a force in the passing game, he's a great run stuffer, but if he can be a better interior lineman in the pass rush, that probably takes him to a whole other level. He came in looking ready to go. Again, I think so much of it is a mental game, and this goal to repeat is a mental game. And right now, while you're watching Dallas imploding with Jerry Jones sniping at Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons kind of giving it back. You're seeing Terry McLaurin not reporting to the camp for the Commanders and Jackson Dart throwing an interception on his first pass of 11 on 11 in training camp for the Giants. The Eagles, they're just kind of humming along. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're leaving it on the field. And they're not creating any distractions away from it. Could be a hell of a season. We shall see. That's it for the Philly sports. That's even it for, I'm not going to go venture off into national sports today, but I did see some questions, some comments, and concerns because there was a thing that happened the other day. And I told you guys that I was going to give you an update. And I saw a few people throw out this idea, and I know I didn't go to the comments as much today as I usually do, and I'm sorry that I didn't go to the comments nearly as much as I typically do. But I see, Joe Fisher's around here too, and having a good old time, and Jim Cochran's having a good old time, and all these people over on YouTube, and all having a great time. And by the way, Alex Schwartz says Sao Paulo coming back to Philly tomorrow. This show is a good way to kick off getting into the Philadelphia spirit. Oh, he's in Sao Paulo. What? Good for you, Alex. Good for you. Checking in from Brazil. What a guy. I saw somebody ask the question. I don't know where it's at now. I had it. It's gone. But somebody asked about the fast. Because I said on Monday's show that I was in the midst of a fast. And I was starting to kind of count down the minutes. And I don't know. I don't know where it's at. Oh, here we go. Greg Bondarenko asks, Russ, how's your fast going? So on Monday, when I did the show, I was, I think, 5 or 6 hours away from hitting 24 hours. The fast started at 10 o'clock on Sunday night. Here's what happened. I got to the 20-hour mark on Monday, and I felt okay. Remember, I was trying to do a 72-hour fast. I got to the 20-hour mark, and my wife and oldest son had gone hiking in the Appalachians. And I was like, okay. The anxiety kicks in a little bit. Wife, child, father-in-law, they go hiking. I know nothing's bad's going to happen, but you worry a little bit. So I'm home with 3 kids, and I usually like to cook, but that day I wasn't cooking. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take the 3 younger kids to Chick-fil-A. We're just going to go hit up Chick-fil-A. And as I'm driving over there, I'm like, I don't need Chick-fil-A. I'm doing this fast. I really don't need it. I'm going to just forego Chick-fil-A. And then as I get closer, I'm like, all right, I'm feeling a little bit irritable, and it's just me and the kids. And so I kind of do this like mental math, and I'm like, okay, I have 5 hours to go. So we were at 19 and a half hours when we started driving to Chick-fil-A. And I was like, I can keep this going. I can get to 10 o'clock, which is 24 hours, fall asleep, wake up the next morning at 36 hours. But I knew that if I did that, I was probably going to feel like death, or at the very least, very irritable in the morning. And I was like, that's not fair to my kids. And this might sound like a cop-out, and I love to eat. Don't get me wrong. I love to eat. But I was like, I don't want to be angry with my little kids the next morning. And then I started doing a little bit of a deeper dive about like the things that you're supposed to eat before you start a 72-hour fast, and then what you're supposed to eat coming out of a 72-hour fast. And I realized I ate the absolute worst shit I could have before the fast. You're supposed to eat like high protein, eat some fiber, right? What did I eat leading into this 72-hour fast that I like willy-nilly decided to start between Sunday night and Monday morning? For dinner, I ate 2 slices of Pottsville Pizzeria pizza with extra cheese. For those of you who are from Schuylkill County, you know Pottsville Pizzeria, lovely place. That's not the kind of food you're supposed to eat before a fast. There's no protein. There's just a lot of carbs and some fat. Not great. What did I follow that up with from 5 o'clock? At 10 o'clock, I ate a bowl of chocolate ice cream. Also not protein. Not a good idea. And so I went, you know what? That was a terrible thing to like eat before the fast. And I didn't want to be irritable, so I went to Chick-fil-A with my kids. I got Chick-fil-A. I ate that night. I broke my fast at 20 hours. And it was okay. I was a little bit disappointed in myself, but whatever. But I am going to commit to the 72-hour fast. It's either going to be this week or next week. I'm going to commit to it. I looked into it. I figured out you have to actually have some salt throughout the day because your body apparently shouldn't just survive on water alone. You're supposed to do a little bit of salt. So I'm doing a little bit more research, making sure that I go into it the right way. I think next week, it might be Monday to Wednesday or Sunday to Wednesday or whatever, next week, I'm going to do the 72-hour fast. I will report back, and I'll try to do it so that it goes across Monday and Wednesday so I can report back to all of you and tell you how I'm feeling. But I was a little bit bummed out that I stopped it because I felt pretty good about the fast, and I was doing well. So anyway. Jim Cochran says, fast from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. I find that much easier. That's not a bad idea. Greg Bondarenko here with the good luck. I appreciate that. Listen, it was actually kind of enjoyable. But what I realize is most days, if I eat at like 6 o'clock or whatever the night before, I'm usually pretty good until like 2 or 3 the next day, which is like the 20-hour mark. Because of what I ate the night before, I felt like death at like 9 a.m. And I was thinking about food at 9 a.m. And then I was going to try to build off that. Nay. So we'll see. We'll see. Peter Tom Will says, respect the honesty. It's all right. Yeah, I had this whole thing planned out where I was going to take a sip of coffee, while answering the question about the fast or like taking a bite of something. But I'm kind of committed to it. I think it's going to be good. I am looking forward to trying it. So we'll see. Kevin at iRock Philly says, Russ, irritable? So shocking. Hey, we're going positive today. A little positivity today. Let's see. Oh, I see another question. All right, so this is the whole thing about the fasting. Jim Cochran says, I fast Tuesday for 24 hours. Every Tuesday. I've seen something about doing a fast on and off where it's like you do every other day or like every other whatever is like a 36-hour fast. You do that like twice a week or something. I don't know if I could commit to that. That just seems like a lot. But we'll see. And Jim Cochran says, that said, fasting does not get easier if you visit Chick-fil-A. Well, it'll be fine. I did see this question. This will be the last thing that we touch on today. So Kevin at iRock Philly says, I just got here. Any talk about John Marks out of PHLY? Yeah, he announced on Twitter yesterday that it was his last day at PHLY. And then he went to clarify today because I guess some people took the wording of his tweet to be that like PHLY let him go. Today, he put out that it was his decision to leave and that he's pursuing other opportunities, which makes sense. Listen, I've said this before. There are good people at PHLY. I wish all of them the best. I hope they all have long, successful careers working for PHLY. I don't know if there is much of a path to the kind of show that Marks was doing or the kind of show that Gargano does. I'm not a big believer in that model for PHLY. You can see how their Sixers content performs and their Eagles content, their Flyers content. Like, it all does really, really well on YouTube. It does. There's no denying it. They've built that YouTube channel, and so they're all getting bigger numbers now than they were, 10 months ago, which is good for them. Seriously, it's very good for them. I always talk about this. There are a finite number of media positions in Philadelphia, so good on all those people. I don't know if an all-sports show can succeed at a place like PHLY. I'm just not sure. If I were a Flyers-only fan, I would check out their Flyers show. If I were a Sixers-only fan, I'd check out their Sixers show. If I only like the Eagles and the Flyers, I'm checking out those two shows. I don't need to go to Gargano's show. Or in the case of Marks, I think that if we're honest here, and I would assume that if we brought him on the show to talk about it, his show wasn't doing gangbusters numbers. He didn't have 15,000 people watching live, which also, by the way, would be insane for a live streaming Philly show. But I don't know what the model is there, I guess is my point, for an all team show. I think that if there is a way to do it, you can't do a traditional Philly sports talk show. I don't think that works. There is a way that I think PHLY could maybe try to do it, but they'd have to fundamentally change the model of how a show works in order to kind of break through. Otherwise, I think you just kind of stick with what you're doing. You find success covering each of the teams and having daily cool. That's the way to go. We'll see. It does make me wonder if Marks left and his numbers were what they were and Gargano was brought in. And remember, the way that Gargano was initially brought in and then the lawsuit that followed, remember it was between All City and Beasley, owners of 97.5. If you go back and you take a look at that, I don't know what the plan there is going to be. And I do wonder, year over year, Gargano's show isn't doing gangbusters numbers. I'm just doing a really quick check here. You're looking at 1,000 streams. There are times where this show ends up with 1,000 streams after the fact. I would say that just based on the numbers, it's not been highly lucrative. Now the sponsors that he's brought in have probably helped a lot. And again, this isn't saying that he's doing a bad job. It's just, I don't know that there's a real segment of fans out there that want to consume that kind of content. That's essentially a radio show being done online. But I could be wrong. We'll find out. We'll see. Will Gargano be there for a long time? Will Gargano try to go back to radio? Will Gargano try to go to Sirius XM? Will Gargano try to go the local TV route? I don't know. I've always kind of wondered why NBC Sports Philly doesn't just do a simulcast of radio shows. Like, I know that they do it for the afternoon show at the Fanatic. I don't know why there's never been the idea of like running one of the morning shows. And I'd assume that there's some kind of exclusivity now between 97.5 and NBC Sports Philly. But like, if it were me, I'd consider it. Like, what worse rating could you do with a simulcast of a radio show than what they probably do for infomercials or whatever reruns they show throughout the day? Just saying. Kevin at iRock Philly says or asks, would PHLY ever go to taking phone calls like radio? I don't know. I don't think they should, though. I don't think that would necessarily do a lot to help them. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show here that like I'm considering the idea of the YouTube memberships not in place of what you have right now. Like all of those things are going to stay. I think there is, by the way, I saw somebody say something about like the live ads in the stream. Those are there in part because I don't know. That's some money to bring in, which then directly goes to Video Guy Amadeo, who continues to grow the show through clips and shorts. But like, I think if you do a membership, there's a way to like give you YouTube Premium so you don't have to pay for ads. I think that there's like a tier that you can offer. So like, I'll open up that community tab. I mentioned this at the top of the show. Community tab on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel. I'll open it up so people can post. I'll start a topic there about like what you would want to see in a membership. Do you want like ad-free? Do you want to be able to have ad-free podcast feed? Do you want to be able to do a show like on a Tuesday or Thursday where it's a members only video that I send everybody the link and you can hop on and we can almost kind of do like a video version or something that's more like a standard radio show where you can call in and we can actually have a conversation, could bring a bunch of people on at once. That could be a lot of fun. It could be a totally different thing. It doesn't change the fabric of what the show is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. All different ways that we can go about doing it. I'll open that up to everybody and we'll see. Ford says, subscribe for a bonus pack of Russ's impressions. And then Greg Bondarenko says, can we do this with Snow the Goalie also? We've talked about it. There were a couple of things that we talked about doing like a year or two ago with Snow the Goalie, with like doing memberships. And I think that there's a path to doing it. And I think for Snow the Goalie, it makes a lot of sense. Like some of it could be like road games, like watch along, stuff like that. Not sure if we're going to do it or not, but like it's an interesting idea. I have to talk. That's where I have to talk to Ant and Bundy, though. I don't make unilateral decisions for the show very often. That would be something we'd have to talk about as a group. But anyway, I'll open that up on the community tab. It should be up by Wednesday night. And then I'll start the topic and I'll start the conversation. And you guys can let me know if it's something that you would be interested in doing. So we'll see. In the meantime, this has been the Russ Joy Show. But you knew that already because you're smart. And it's also the name of the show. Now, I'll be back on Friday. And we'll get into Philly sports, national sports, and dissect the media that cover them. Because that is, of course, the mission statement of the show. So until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy. You knew that because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Hit the like button. That is the number one thing you can do to help this channel. Hit the like button. If you want to share the video, it does help. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you definitely should. Ring the bell to get notified whenever the show goes live. And if you like listening in the podcast feed, you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'll talk to each and every one of you Friday here on The Russ Joy Show. Bye now.